Hey everyone, I'm Miguel Maravilla from FightNews.com and SouthernCaliforniaBoxing.com. Just coming to you today. It is Wednesday, May 20th, 2020. We got, some to talk about. We have some upcoming programming as well as some boxers to talk about, and of course, the return of boxing. Yes, we got boxing coming back pretty soon, slowly but surely. We have some fight cards that are slated to return in June and some in late May, as well as what these fighters have in store. So let's get you caught up. First, we have there was the governors from California, New York, and Texas. They've already announced as far as bringing pro sports back to those states, California, New York, and Texas. Without spectators though. So yes, it's been boring. There's been no live sports in the last 2 months. So people are beginning to question when are sports coming back. Well, this is a good start, without spectators. However, in that meeting, boxing wasn't mentioned. But as soon as, they start to have the protocols and guidelines, safety measures, etc., then we can guarantee boxing coming back. There were some cards. There was UFC cards in Florida. I know Florida's been they've been active in bringing combat sports. So boxing can follow the blueprint. Hopefully, more likely they will. So that is exciting. I know a few weeks ago, almost a month ago, there was a fight card in Nicaragua that was a month ago, and then last week there was also there was a slated card in Nicaragua, if I'm not mistaken. However, I'm not sure if that went through. However, there is talk of of cards coming back in June, as I mentioned. We also have going down this weekend. There was also a slated card, King Carlos Promotions, along with Roy Jones Jr. They were supposed to headline. Not headline, I'm sorry, but they were supposed to promote a fight card from Michoacan, Mexico that was supposed to be on Facebook and I believe YouTube. But anyways, next weekend there will be a card in Santo Domingo in the Dominican Republic. So props to the Dominican Republic. They will be at the Teo Cruz Coliseum in Santo Domingo. And then you have Juan Boxing Company. They'll be promoting it. Of course, closed doors, no spectators. And that will be Norberto Jimenez and Eliezer Aquino. They will square off for the WBA Fedelatin Super Flyweight title. That will be broadcasted by ESPN Knockout. And then we also have Jackson Martinez, 19-0, 7 KOs. He's taking on Starlin Wilson, 12-0, 9 knockouts. That's a 10-round lightweight bout. Somebody's O has got to go. So that should be a pretty interesting matchup. Two undefeated prospects looking to make a name for themselves. And that will be next week, May 30th. So check that out. Moving forward, in June, there's also buzz. Zamfir Promotions, they're looking to bring back Emmanuel Navarrete, WBO Super Bantamweight champion. That guy's been on a tear ever since defeating Isaac Dogbe twice. That guy has been active. He's been fighting on pay-per-view cards. He would last scored a stoppage over Filipino Gio Santima on the Tyson Fury Deontay Wilder pay-per-view undercard. So he will be returning June 6th. I believe he'll be fighting a 10-rounder at the TV Azteca Studios in Mexico City. So Navarrete fighting in his backyard. He'll be he's also been looking for some unification belts. He's been looking to take on some of the champs at 122 and some of the big names. Also, he was calling out Ray Vargas. He was calling out um, Danny Roman. He was also he's looking to fight the best at that division. So moving forward to June 9th, of course, June 9th is a slated card supposed to take place. That's Top Rank Boxing. They're supposed to feature Shakur Stevenson taking on Rafael Rivera on ESPN. That will be at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas. Nothing's official yet, but that's the word. What we're looking at. Shakur Stevenson, the WBO featherweight champ, he's coming off a win, unanimous decision win off of Joet Gonzalez last October, and also Rafael Rivera. He's been in with some pretty solid opposition. He's gone up against Jojo Diaz, Leo Santa Cruz, and he's given those guys a solid 12 rounds of boxing. So should be an interesting scrap. I myself, Stevenson should be able to defeat Rivera, but that should be good, especially with boxing coming out back on ESPN. So watch out for that coming soon, hopefully. And of course, there's the other boxing promotional companies. You have Japan. They're also looking to bring back boxing in July. You also have PBC. They've mentioned that they want to bring back boxing. Also, they're looking to return in July. Also, Oscar De La Hoya's Golden Boy Promotions. They're looking to host a card on 4th of July. More on Top Rank too. Top Rank is looking to host a card July 2nd, Thursday, July 2nd. And of course, Golden Boy is looking to promote something 4th of July. Some of the names that have been mentioned are Ryan Garcia, Linares. I know Garcia's been making waves. He's been causing waves lately as far as calling people out and, just doing his usual thing on social media. And with that said, we also have to mention Matchroom Boxing. Eddie Hearn has come up with this brilliant idea, hosting fights in his backyard, huge backyard, not your typical backyard. I mean, it's if you log on to Matchroom Boxing, if you check out Eddie Hearn's post on social media, you'll see what I'm talking about. But hey, if that's what it's going to be, hey, why not? That wouldn't be the first time that somebody has boxing in their backyard. I know Hugh Hefner, may he rest in peace, the Playboy, the Don. He would always host fights, boxing cards in his backyard at the mansion in Beverly Hills. So would like to see that type of atmosphere. I'm sure that's what it would be in Sir Eddie Hearn's backyard. So props to him, props to Matchroom. We also have Oscar Valdez. I mentioned we had news on Oscar Valdez. So manager Frank Espinoza Jr. tweeted the other day, Oscar Valdez will go back to training camp soon with the trainer of the year, Eddie Reynoso. Valdez is expected to fight in mid-July, so that's some good news. Valdez, a very exciting fighter. He himself has been in some pretty exciting fights. So we're looking forward to his return. Valdez, he's been pursuing that fight at 130 with WBC champion Miguel Berchelt. That's one fight they've been pushing for, if I'm not mistaken. I believe that fight was supposed to take place, was already was in the works. However, all this sideline, the COVID-19 pandemic, whatever you want to call it, pretty much sidelined this fight. If I'm not mistaken, I believe that fight was supposed to take place at Staples Center in May, and as like I mentioned, the COVID-19 pandemic was able to was pretty much sideline all those plans. However, Jose Ramirez, he was a fighter that was scheduled to take on Victor Postol in February in China. That fight was pushed back to that fight was postponed because of the COVID-19 pandemic. So then after that, Top Rank scrambled and they went ahead and got themselves a May 9th date, which was supposed to be in Fresno. And I believe that's what scratched those plans for Valdez and Burchell to take place in May. But with that said, Valdez coming back in May. In July, mid-July. More details to come as soon as an opponent is mentioned. We also have some upcoming programming this week. So actually tonight, beginning at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 Pacific, you have ESPN. They'll be airing debatable decisions. Yes, some of the most debatable decisions in the last, what did you say, 20, 25 years? So that will begin with Oscar De La Hoya versus Felix Trinidad. That fight took place September of 1999. Both undefeated fighters, both in their prime, both champions. De La Hoya was coming in as the WBC welterweight champ, and Trinidad was coming in as the IBF welterweight champ. Both were big punchers. De La Hoya was the more complete boxer, whereas Tito was the monster. He was the big puncher. So of course that had the makings of Mexico, Puerto Rico. Debatable decision, definitely. I couldn't. Okay, I'm gonna just break it down to you. So De La Hoya, Trinidad. Of course, you're talking the late '90s. You had De La Hoya, who many didn't like here growing up in the Southland area in East LA. De La Hoya wasn't embraced by the he wasn't embraced that easily by the Mexican American Hispanic crowd. And what I mean by that, I mean the Mexican born Mexican nationals like my parents, my uncles, cousins, some of my cousins, and of course you have the first generation Mexican Americans like myself. We Chavez was the man. We rooted Chavez on. He was a symbol for the Mexican American community. It was one of those where he became the man. He was the man. So when it was time to fight Oscar, hey, there was houses divided. You had people rooting for Oscar, people rooting for Chavez. Oscar was more embraced by the second, third, fourth generation Mexican Americans, and of course by the Americans. It wasn't it was difficult to accept Oscar, and of course moving forward, I myself was going for Felix Trinidad in that fight. I'm not gonna lie. But watching the first 9 rounds, I was just like, oh damn, Oscar's gonna win again. And like I said, I was going for Felix. Why I don't know. There was just that we don't like that. We still couldn't forgive Oscar because of his stoppages of Julio Cesar Chavez. It was just we. It was just if you were around during that time, you know what I'm talking about. But in that fight, after that decision, I just remember saying to myself, "Wow, they gave Tito the fight." I couldn't. Everybody was shocked, including De La Hoya himself. If you ask me, hey, uh, Don King did his magic for that fight, and possibly that was possibly one of his last times that his magic ever worked. So, I mean, that's definitely a debatable decision. Then you have at 8 p.m., 5 Pacific. That would be Oscar De La Hoya versus Shane Mosley, the rematch. That fight, no question, the first fight, Shane won the first fight. Coming into the second fight, it was a different Shane Mosley. Mosley had been defeated. I believe he had already been defeated twice by Vernon Forrest. And De La Hoya was, we had the new De La Hoya. So, watching that fight, I thought Oscar had it. I feel Oscar was much more improved than the first time around. And if you look at the replay, if you look when they're announcing the decision, they make the decision, and to look at Mosley's reaction, you're like, oh well, even he himself couldn't believe it. So that's definitely a debatable decision, no question. That will be followed by Manny Pacquiao versus Juan Manuel Marquez 3 at 9 p.m. 6 Pacific. Now, the first fight could have gone either way. I believe ESPN replayed that fight about a week ago, 2 weeks ago for Cinco de Mayo. That the first fight it could have gone either way. The second fight could have gone either way too. Same thing for the third fight. Either of those fights could have gone either way. Were they debatable decisions? Absolutely. Pacquiao could have possibly had won the first 3 fights. There's no argument that Marquez could have possibly had won those first 3 fights. So in that fight, there was a much more aggressive Juan Manuel Marquez. There was he's taking more risk. However, the judges saw it differently, and the decision went to Pacquiao. Then we take it back to 1987. That was the super fight, Marvelous Marvin Hagler taking on Sugar Ray Leonard from Caesar's Palace. Yes, 1987. I didn't watch that fight. I was, depending when it took place in 87, it could have been in, either 4 or 5 years old, just depending on when it was, but never watched it. I did watch that fight about 6, 7 years later. So once I was into boxing, once I started studying more of the history and getting, more into depth, I recall going to the local video store that was JC Video. So they had this big section on wrestling movies. So I kind of got tired of the whole wrestling genre. And then I noticed that they had a few boxing, not a few, they had a quite selection of boxing videos, VHS. So there it was, right at the bottom, the super fight, Marvin Hagler and Sugar Ray Leonard. So I went ahead and watched it. So, I mean, just depending on what you like, that's one of those fights that's still debated to this day. However, in watching that fight, I feel that Ray Leonard's ring generalship is what did it in that fight. And one of the reasons why I feel is that's what did it for him in that fight. You had the case of a puncher, brawler, Hagler, and then you had the case of an overall good boxer in Ray Leonard. Ray Leonard used his technique, he used his footwork, hand speed, his smarts to box Marvin Hagler, and it showed when Hagler admits it. I had told him, why don't you? I believe it was, why don't you stop fighting like a bitch and fight like a man, is what Hagler had told him or something like that. So that goes to show that Leonard was in control. Leonard and I felt that's what did it for Leonard. Watching that replay, I definitely definitely feel Leonard should have edged that fight. But was it debatable? Hey, definitely. Just depending on what you like. If you're the type that likes the aggression, if you're the type that likes the boxing, to each his own. But in that case, the judges felt that it was in favor of Ray Leonard. That's why it remains one of the most debatable decisions today. And finally, that will be concluded 2002, April 2002, Floyd Mayweather Jr. versus Jose Luis Castillo won. So, you had Floyd Mayweather moving up in weight. He was moving up to lightweight. This is the Floyd Mayweather that was walking through everybody at 130. He was coming off some solid wins over Diego Corrales, he just defeated the best at 130. So when it was time for him to move up, they decided to take on Jose Luis Castillo, which at the time, you look at his record, it's like, okay, it's a titleist that they're bringing in for Floyd. And personally, I think they were expecting a typical Mexican brawler to come at him, a big, tall Mexican brawler we can counter, and we could just stop him the same way we did to Corrales. However, and Corrales and Castillo, similar styles. However, in this fight, Castillo came in as the champion. Castillo did his thing. He boxed with Floyd. He roughed him up at times. Let's just say Floyd wasn't comfortable. Yes, he had a messed up shoulder, but Castillo had to do what he had to do, and so did Floyd. But in that fight, Castillo he was just taking it to Floyd. Floyd looked concerned in that fight. Floyd did not look, as I mentioned, he did not look comfortable. And as you go to the scorecards in the final 30 seconds of the telecast that you'll watch tonight on ESPN, it's probably not going to be the original telecast. You're probably going to have the Colonel and probably another guest analyst. But on the HBO broadcast, you had, I believe it was Jim Lampley, Larry Merchant, and George Foreman. All three of them, the last 30 seconds were basically, hey, they called him Pretty Boy Floyd. He was the most celebrated athlete. But today he will, Lampley mentioned something, and Foreman and Merchant, they agreed. And when it was said and done and the announcement, the decision was made, yes, this is definitely one of the debatable decisions. If you tell me that is a fight that Mayweather lost and Castillo should have, he deserved that win. However, there were bigger plans for Floyd Mayweather with Top Rank at the time. So both came out winners. Castillo ended up getting the rematch. The rematch didn't turn out to be quite the same. Floyd, being the boxer that he is, being the technician that he is, being the pound for pound best that he is, he adapted and he was able to, to defeat Castillo. But, Castillo went on to be, to fight some of the better names at 135 and at 140. And, he ended up fighting his classic battle with Diego Corrales, and Castillo came out making a name for himself after the fight. Everybody knows as Castillo to be the man that roughed up Floyd. So many will tell you, hey, Floyd won. Okay, yeah, he won, but say it in soul. Come on, let's give Castillo his credit for that night. And then this Friday, Telemundo will be airing some of Saul Canelo Alvarez's fights he had on Telemundo. So you might want to check that out this weekend. That, as I mentioned, on Telemundo, that will begin at midnight. Yes, it's the best of Saul Canelo Alvarez. That is Lo Mejor de Saul Canelo Alvarez, Friday at midnight, 11 p.m. Central. So You'll be able to watch Saul Canelo Alvarez's fight with Gabriel Martinez from April of 2008. Also, uh, February 2008 when Canelo defeated Axel Rodrigo Solis, and that will also include his win against Raul Pizon. So check that out this Friday. So that's on Telemundo. And moving forward, more news. We have there's a slated pay-per-view to take place. That's, once things get back to normal, of course. That would be a showdown between Vasil Lomachenko and Teofimo Lopez. That of course would be for no spectators, just depending on how the protocol, what the procedures are, how things are. Hopefully things get back to normal. So Lomachenko and Teofimo Lopez, they themselves they refuse to take on their mandatories just so that they can just so that they can square off. They didn't want to take no fights in between. They were like, no, we want to, and they've been trading jabs on social media. So that should be a pretty solid fight on pay-per-view in September. Again, nothing's official yet, but we're just waiting to get word to make it official. So that wraps it here. We're done here with today's segment. We will be back next week. And again, once things start to pick up, once there's more traffic, more press conferences, more workouts, more news, more scheduled fights, we will be coming to you on a regular basis. So until then, just follow me on Twitter at Maravilla. Also, for the latest boxing news information, log on to FightNews.com and SouthernCaliforniaBoxing.com. So until then, I will see you guys next time. Have a good one.